Okay, today we're talking about lenses, specifically 35mm lenses adapted to the GFX sensor. After like 5,000 hours of researching and wasting a bunch of money buying and testing lenses, I think I'm finally settling on a few choices that are actually usable in this system. And today I want to share my top 5 lenses that I'm going to be using, plus a few honorable mentions. I should start with this disclaimer. This is probably not the best way to shoot with your GFX camera. GF lenses are still probably the way to go, especially if you have a 100 megapixel sensor. If I'm not a huge nerd, I'll probably get the 50 f3.5 and the Nikkor 65. The performance of these full-frame lenses are most likely gonna be worse. They are most likely going to have poor corner performance, vignetting and smearing. They are gonna have some blooming, some flares, but they are lots of fun and can be quite cheap to get into. And if you're not pixel peeping, the results are gonna look nice for the most part, especially if you're into the vintage film look. And here I'm gonna talk about my experience and which lenses work well. So the first one I've got here is the Nikon 50mm f1.8. This lens stays on the camera like 80 to 90% of the time. I just really like it. It's just like tiny overall. I think the size of this lens and the adapter is like roughly equal to the 50 f3.5 native lens. I've come to really like this focal length on the GFX system. In fact, I like it so much that I plan to get the native 50 f3.5, and so this lens is gonna be pretty sad. This lens is very sharp and the coverage is great. At f2.8, everything is already pretty sharp, but the corners are a little bit smeary. Those clean up nicely when you get to f8. At f8, this lens is pretty much perfect. You can't find any fault on this sensor. At f1.8, there's a lot of smearing in the corners, and there's a little bit of a glow. It's also pretty soft, but it's nice for portraits and you can kinda get the medium format look. There are also a lot of flares on f1.8, and those clear up a bit when you get to f2.8, but it's just something cool. This is just a very solid and useful lens all around. It's also quite cheap at around like $100. So if you want a budget option of the native 50 f3.5, I think this lens is going to work great. Next, I've got the Nikkor 35mm f2.8 PCE shift lens. It's a 28mm equivalent, and it's just a very solid option for this system. It's a shift lens, so the image circle is going to be larger, and the corner performance are going to be better than most full-frame lenses. I do like 28mm as my wide lens of choice. I've come to find out that 28 and 40 is just more versatile than 35 and 50. And I'm not in love with the rendering of this lens. I feel like it's a little bit lower contrast than the other lenses I have. It's pretty much a medium format lens on this system, so I can't be complaining too much. This lens is not the cheapest, but it's still much cheaper than a native lens. I think I got this one for like $200 or something, so that's okay. Next, I got a newcomer to my collection here. It's the EF mount Tamron 17 to 35 f2.8 to 4, and it covers the sensor fully from 20mm onwards, which is pretty amazing if you think about it. In comparison, the native 20 to 35 is like $5,000 or something. This actually opens up to f2.8 at 20mm. I don't really need this lens per se. I don't really shoot wide angle that often. But last time I did astrophotography, I really wanted a wider lens. So this is the best option that I've found. If you're going to get this lens though, you have to get the finger adapter. It's not really supported by the ViewShox adapter, so there's a lot of bugs. The IBIS of the camera is freaking out with this lens on the ViewShox adapter. The finger adapter actually works really well. There are even built-in profile corrections for this lens on the finger adapter. You might get some weird distortions on the corners on wider focal lengths, but this lens plus the adapter is still like 3 or 4 times cheaper than the native 20 to 35 GF, so And third, we have the Nikkor 135mm f2.8 AI lens. This is just a solid option for tight landscape shots for me. It's pretty tiny and light for 135mm, so that's nice. When you adapt this to the GFX sensor, it comes out to like a 105mm. This is definitely not a focal length that I'm going to use frequently, but when I bust it out, I often get pretty great results. This photo, for example, on my last hike, is probably one of my favorite photos ever, and it was shot on my Canon 135 f2.8 over here. The Canon was also fine, but I find the vignetting is pretty hard to correct. Vintage 135mm lenses on the market are very cheap. I think I got these for like, I don't know, like $50 each. I also tried the Minolta 135 f2.8, but the Nikkor is the best, so this is the choice on my travel now. And yeah, this one, there's just no smearing, very little vignetting. I just can't find any fault of the photos taken with this lens, so it's great. And last but not least, I've got here the Minolta 85mm f1.7. This lens is just absolutely gorgeous, both in the build quality and image quality department. Just look at that piece of glass over here. Yeah, this lens is a little bit more expensive, at around like $250. But then does the image come out very nice. You've got very shallow depth of field wide open, or even at f2.8. It's sharp but not clinical. And in general, I found Minolta lenses to be very high quality. But I don't know, I just don't use this lens pretty often. Maybe because the focal length is like neither here or there. I would prefer to shoot at like 40 or 50mm if that's the only focal length I have. And if I want a telephoto lens, I'll probably want something longer like the 135. So this lens is often left at home, which is pretty sad because it's an amazing piece of glass. And that's my top 5 35mm lenses on the GFX system. But here are some honorable mentions. Here I got the Minolta 45mm f2. And this lens is just tiny. This lens is even smaller than the Nikon 50 f1.8, so that's great. This lens is very sharp with great contrast and micro contrast, and the image feels very poppy. But the corners are just a little bit more vignetty and smeary. And it's also a 45mm, which is like a 35mm equivalent. So if that's your focal length, then this is one of the choice. I don't really like 35mm though, so this lens is mostly left at home. Next we got the Canon FL 28mm f3.5. I've got this for like $20 or something, and there's no hard vignette on this lens, but the corners is a little bit smeary and it never really goes away. This one is definitely a bargain, especially if you shoot the expand side photos. Here I got the Minolta 58mm f1.4. This lens is pretty popular on this system, and I took a few portraits with this lens. There aren't a lot of vignetting, but I just find the corner to be a little bit too smeary for my taste. It's also not a very sharp lens, so if you are going for the dreamy portraits, then it's going to be fine. It's not that medium format look for the GFX though, so we'll probably still need to visit Metacon 65 for that. This is the Nikon AI 85mm f2. And I think this lens is fine. This lens has barely any vignetting and smearing. I haven't shot many photos with it. I just like the Minolta 85 too much to try this lens. This is the Helios 44M, but any Helios works on this sensor. It's a very popular lens in the vintage lens spheres overall. It's used by many cinematographers, and I can definitely see why. A perfect image is just kinda get boring sometimes. Anyways, I have the 44M version, but I think all the versions cover the GFX sensor pretty great. You get a surely bokeh in the right conditions, and the coverage of this lens is great. But I don't really use this lens much often. I just kinda have way too many options when it comes to portrait lenses. I've seen some people doing fake anamorphic mod for this lens, so maybe that's on my list to try someday. Not here is a few Canon EF lenses on my list to try. I got the Canon EF 40mm f2.8 and I got the 16-35. I heard that lens worked great from 20mm like the Tamron. And there are a few more EF lenses that got very high praise. Those are the Tamron 35 f1.8, the 45 f1.8, the Sigma 50mm f1.4, and the Sigma 105 f1.4. I've seen a lot of samples on those lenses and those seem to work pretty well. I'm just not very excited for Sigma and Tamron lenses though, so... There's also the Canon 50 f1.2 and 85 f1.2. Those are like the speed demon lenses for this system. But it's like way too much for me. Those lenses are very expensive anyway, so I might as well get like a decent lens first. So yeah, that's it. This surely has helped a person or two. Tune in next time for my gear acquisition syndrome series.